Hello, I'm Karen Golden Oronte. I'm bringing you Living Histories, and today I have the opportunity to speak with Betty Emery ONeil. Hey, Betty, how are you?
Karen, I'm just fine, thank you.
Good. You are a long time. Oh, good. I'm glad. So am I. You're a longtime resident of Cohasset. You've brought some wonderful photographs for us to share, and you pretty much grew up on Summer Street.
Yes.
Here we have a wonderful photograph of your grandfather and father.
Right. My grandfather and his father.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, right. Because he was the first one to come to Cohasset. He knew the area. He lived in Boston, and he knew the area because he used to rent houses in Hull every summer. Sometimes my mother and her three sisters would even take the boat back to school because they would stay beyond the summer season. So anyway, he was in the worked in Massachusetts brewery. He was like the office manager. His father, my great-grandfather, was a brewer and had come over from Ireland, from Galway. But when we have a letter from Massachusetts Brewery telling my grandfather that his services are no longer required because of the Volstead Act, which was prohibition, of course. So 1920 was when he moved to Cohasset because he was forced to retire. And since he knew the area, and since his youngest daughter, my mother's youngest sister, was already married and living in Cohasset, it just made sense for him to come here. And that was the house that my mother lived in first, and she was married from that house.
And so here we have
this.
Yes,
that's my dad and my mother. And that's taken on the corner of the porch of the house, and it looks quite different from this other picture, which was taken in 2008. It's this corner right here. But it was all covered with vines. It didn't have this railing, and it doesn't even look quite like this now. It changes often, but anyway, that was the first house in Cohasset that my family lived in.
So now here you are again.
Yes.
In 1935.
Right. That's not the same house.
No, it's a different one.
Yeah, it is a different one. My parents, after they were married, they moved down to South Dartmouth, and my dad had met an officer when he was in World War I over in France. He had met an officer who said, took a liking to him and said, "When this is over, come and see me. I may have a job for you." So that's how he ended up in the New Bedford area. But then, because of the Depression, they came back to be closer to my mother's parents, and they rented a house from Dr. and Mrs. Bristol and became very close friends with them.
So
this is about the time the age that I would have been when they moved here. Maybe just I was a little bit older than that, perhaps. But we have so many memories of that little house at the end of the Bristol's driveway, including the. Well, maybe you want to get to those later.
Okay.
There is some pictures of the backyard there.
Here.
No, here. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, under that. Yeah, those.
Oh,
Yeah. This one. Yeah, this.
Okay.
Okay. This one was in the backyard in the sandbox that my dad and Dr. Bristol built for us. If you look over in the background, you can see wash hanging in the line. Martha and Mary Enos lived in that house, and that was their backyard because our house was down at the end of the driveway. But there's a birch tree there. We used to play in the yard with our dolls, and the little catkins that would drop from the birch trees, we would grind up and pretend they were grape nuts because they looked like cereal. We played dolls a lot. And those are some of the wonderful memories from that house.
So now you went through the school system here.
Yes, I did. Yeah. And
you went to
St. Anthony's Church, and this is a whole group of the Sunday school people from St. Anthony's Church, probably in late 1930s, maybe as much as 1940, maybe 44. I'm sorry. Yeah, 44. Yeah. As I look at them, we are a little bit older than that, right? So that was on the steps of the old St. Anthony's Church, which of course isn't there anymore, and nothing has been built there because the lot line isn't wide enough. And this is the Girl Scout troop. Nancy Scripture Garrison's mother was a scout leader, along with Mrs. George Benedict. And this was taken on the common. These are the senior scouts. Nancy's family took in Moyer Fannin and Patricia Gill as war guests from England. It must have been very difficult for young kids then to leave their families in England. Even though their families wanted them to be away from the bombing and all that, they sent them across the sea. And they lived in homes here. And we became quite friendly with Moyer, my sister especially, with Moyer and Patricia. And even though they were Girl Guides, they were part of our Girl Scout troop too.
Mm-hmm. So now here's just a photograph of your high school.
Yes, right. Joseph P. Osgood High School, built in 1891. The boys went in through the basement here, the girls went in on the other side. These stairs are similar to the ones that were inside. So you'd go up those stairs, we came out that way actually. We went in through the basements, but there was another flight of stairs that went up to the 3rd floor, which is way up here, and that's where the gym was and the auditorium. And those were wooden stairs. I don't know how the fire department liked that idea. If they had a group in the auditorium, it wasn't such a good idea.
So here is 1944.
Yeah, and that is the basketball team. Mary Mulvey is right here, Ed Mulvey's sister. I was not very tall to play basketball, and I didn't get into many games, but Dottie Hines, who was smaller than me, got into every game because she was so quick. Oh, she could move around that court. just as
and here you are sitting on the front steps.
That's field hockey. Now, we had to walk all the way up the hill to go to the athletic field at the top of Lincoln Hillside.
Milken Field?
I guess
was that what it was called then?
I guess so. I can't remember exactly, but by the time you got up there, you had all warmed up very well to run back up and down that field. And Miss Ayers was the gym teacher, and coached the sports. And the girls had more teams than the boys because the boys didn't have field hockey. The boys did have basketball, and at that time anyway.
And football.
And baseball and football, yeah. But football, I think, was probably the biggest one.
So now this is the house on Summer Street.
Yes. When my parents lived there, they first it had been divided into apartments, so that number 30 was on one side, number 32 on the other. So they moved there after they had come back to Cohasset and lived at my grandparents' house for a while. During the time that we lived at my grandparents' house, after my grandmother died, we had moved from the Bristol's old house, and we moved down the street to my grandfather's house because his house was bigger and we could take care of him there better. While we were living there, this was in about 43, 44, 45, around that time, my aunt and uncle from Hingham moved in as well with their daughters. So there was my grandfather, my mother and father, my sister and me, and my aunt and uncle and their daughter, all in that same house with one bathroom.
Well, here's a modern picture.
Yes,
today.
yes. So that's the Sankey house, which we didn't move to until 1949, or maybe even early 50s. My grandparents' house was sold and divided up among my sister and her 3 sisters. So Mother and Dad didn't quite know what they were going to do next. And because they had become so friendly with Dr. Bristol and Florence Bristol, they were offered this house for, I think, less than what he would have gotten from somebody else, because Bristol didn't want to see the Emorys move. It was a wonderful relationship, and they were very, very good neighbors all around.
So this is 30 Summer Street.
Yeah, right. As I say, it had been made into apartments. Dr. Bristol had owned quite a lot of property as investments, and it was a duplex at that time. And it was while we lived there too. When the Livingstons bought it, not sure what year, they just totally changed it. And I know that my parents bought it in 1949 for $14,000. They sold it in '68 when they moved up to Framingham, where I live now, for $35,000.
Wow.
It then was on the market for $600,000, and the last I knew, it was on the market for $1,125,000. So they should have kept it. But an awful lot of work had been done to it. Awful lot of work.
So now this was Main Street when you were growing up.
Yes, right. And that was, well, actually the junior high and high school was on Elm Street. You'd walk around, the town was here, you'd walk about here, and the library, and then the church. So we sort of lived in that block. But, and I worked down in downtown Cohasset. Got to know most people in Cohasset by working right in downtown.
Now, Elizabeth Bristol
Bristol, yes.
opened her store on this block.
Yes.
And could you point sort of where it is?
There's a doorway that goes up. It's hard to see exactly where it is. I think it's right before the Central Market.
So
and
before
the door-
French Memories is now?
That would be where the Central Market was. But the shop was upstairs, so it was all these windows across here, and it was originally Elizabeth Bristol Sportswear, very nice lines of women's clothing. Then she opened the children's shop down the hall from the main store. On the right, as you went up the stairs, was Sarah Lawrence's beauty salon. But Elizabeth's father, Dr. Bristol, owned this whole block and had his dental office up another flight of stairs. So my memories of downtown Cohasset are very much associated with the Bristols.
Yeah. So now here is a photograph of all of you women.
Yeah. This is
from the store.
Yeah, this is Elizabeth Bristol here, and I'm down here. Barbara Lincoln, whose brother was Dick Lincoln, the golf pro at the golf club, Cohasset Golf Club. She was Elizabeth's right-hand person. I mean, she went to New York to do the buying and all that, and she was very, very, not just useful, but valuable to Elizabeth. Some of these other people, Dottie Williams, Joanne Woods, Kath Warren, and McMulkin Sadler, and yeah, that's it. But that's a nice picture of Elizabeth. She was a great boss, very, very good boss. We socialized outside of work as well. All of us, we would have lots of picnics and staff parties at Christmas and all that kind of thing.
This is one of the fashion shows from
Yes,
the store?
Yeah. It took place at the building that was, this was taken outside the Ferber House, which was the original community center. My mother had been on the original board to start the community center, and it was at that location on North Main and Sawyer Street. This is Barbara here, and Beverly Stidstone, some other friends of mine, Avis, Nancy Scripture, Kath Warren, and here's Elizabeth with me. That's in what she called the Sky Parlor. It was a room over their double garage on their house on Summer Street, and that's where we had our Christmas parties, our staff parties, and then we had picnics outside there as well.
So what lines did you carry in the store?
Oh, I can tell you, Henry Rosenfeld, Claire McCardle, Cole, not the Cole that we see today, Saucony, which was probably rayon jersey dresses with a knitted belt kind of thing that went with them. They were very comfortable, very popular. Mm-hmm. But I think Emily Wilkins, which I don't think she was around for too long, but she made youthful young people's clothes. But Claire McCardle was probably one of the biggest names there.
And Claire McCardle is like the Donna Karan of today.
Yes.
So you think of all of the upscale lines
exactly
that you had in the store.
Right. In the children's department too, some very nice McKem jerseys, things like that. But then Elizabeth opened the store downstairs after Miss Miriam died. That was a dry goods store. Yard goods, ribbons, thread, all kinds of things like that. And when when Miss Miriam died, and Elizabeth decided to open that up, she added things like greeting cards and several other items to that. It was a separate door going into there. No connection. You had to go outside and then in the other door and up the stairs to get to the shop upstairs. Nellie DeSantos pretty much ran that for Elizabeth. She was kind of in charge of that department, just like Barbara Lincoln was her right-hand person in the sportswear. Nellie was down there. We had a reunion. Maybe before I talk about the reunion, speaking of that Bristol block, Jim Sullivan, whose father was a local police officer, and he graduated in my class. He wrote many poems, but he wrote one when a whale was beached on the coast in Cohasset, not quite on the beach and not at Sandy Cove, but somewhere in between there. But he says, now, Chick DeLore's drugstore was part of the block.
Right.
And Fred Mulcahy had the Central Market. So they said they had to move the whale or move the town. But there was never any question. Chick DeLore wasn't going anywhere with his drugs, nor Fred Mulcahy with his meat. Still less was Donald Gammons set to pack his violin. The churches, stores, and homes in that New England town were there to stay. The whale would have to go, although it lay high on rocks that yesterday were covered by the sea. A squad of stolid lobstermen was delegated. Knives and ropes and dynamite were used. The whale, not the town, was moved. New England moved again.
That's
But now Jim writes beautiful poems. I sometimes make up words for familiar tunes. and after Elizabeth's shop had closed, she moved down to Florida. She would come back to visit friends of ours in Sherburne, and since I live in Framingham, that's right next door. And we would always go over and see. By then, my mother had moved up to Framingham, my mother and dad, and then finally, after my dad died, my mother lived with me. But we would go over to visit Elizabeth when she was visiting in Sherburne. So we decided we would have, while she was up here, we would have a reunion of the Elizabeth Bristol staff. And we did at Nancy Scripture's house. I believe it was. Oh, could be wrong there. Well, anyway, so I decided that I would make up some words for a couple of songs here. Now, if you bear with me.
absolutely.
Okay. One thing I have to mention, Wednesday afternoons, Elizabeth's shop was closed, along with several other stores downtown.
Well, now, why Wednesday?
Well, they were open, not on Sunday, of course, but they were open Monday through Saturday. And that would have been 6 full days of work. And I don't know whether it was anything legal or whether she just felt that it would be nice to have a time when we'd get a little time off. And so Wednesday afternoons was that time. So that's I have to mention that because it's part of the song. But anyway, this is to the tune of Sentimental Journey. Gonna take a sentimental journey, gonna set my heart at ease, gonna make a sentimental journey to renew old memories. 9, that's the time we opened. 6, that's the time we closed. 11, coffee time and donuts, ice cream break at 3:45. Wednesday afternoons we locked the door. That's the way we worked at Elizabeth's store. Never thought we all would get together in this house so full of cheer. Glad to make this sentimental journey here.
Bravo, that's fabulous.
Well, now that was how I started the reunion, and nobody left, so maybe I could do another one. But you can leave if you want. The help were the best customers, and that was a good thing all around because the customers would see what we were wearing and kind of think, well, gee, they must know what they're doing. I guess I should go that way too. We already mentioned some of the designers' names, and then they're mentioned in this. This is to the tune of the company store, Tennessee Ernie Ford's, because, as I say, we were among the best customers, so we always owed. So anyway, you marked 16 racks, and what did you get? Another day older and deeper in debt.
Rosenfeld and Claire McCardle, Saccony and Cole, $20 on account, and still you're in the hole. You measured 16 yards, and what did you get? Another day older and deeper in debt. Knitting needles, gift items, ribbon galore. We bought them all at Elizabeth's store. You tagged 16 skirts, and what did you get? Another day older and deeper in debt. Nylons and bathing suits, jerseys by McKem. Every week when payday came, we bought our share of them. You swept 16 steps, and what did you get? Another day older and deeper in debt. St. Peter might have called us, but we couldn't go till we paid our bill at Elizabeth's store.
Bravo. Oh, Betty, that's great.
There's one other that's very short. Down on Main Street in Cohasset stood a little store. Sportswear, lingerie, and children's cards, and much, much more. Fun and games, the old Sky Parlor, because that's where we had those parties. And then there's some initials here, and those are the first initials of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the staff there. Fun and games, the old Sky Parlor. Why did it have to stop? Hail E.B. and D.A.J. Hail E. Bristol's shop. Then there's an official cheer. It wasn't really official, but I made it official. We had a code on the back of a tag. Now, I'm giving away the store here, but on the back of the tag, there were numbers that indicated, no, there were letters actually, sorry, that indicated the cost of the garment. And that would help when it was sale time to know, well, we might still make $1 or $2 on this, even though we practically give it away. So the code for the 9 digits was dig for pay. So dig for pay, dig for pay. Elizabeth Bristol's hip hip hooray. So that's that was a very good reunion, though. It was fun to have. So.
Absolutely.
But she was a wonderful, wonderful boss. And it seemed to me that whatever else I did, I always had a job at Elizabeth. I mean, I did leave to go to the Academy Moderne in Boston. I went in the mornings, then I worked in the afternoons at Elizabeth's. And then left, of course, when we got married. And then when we came back for just a 6-month stay, when my husband was in a training program for his new job, he had just gotten out of the Marine Corps, I worked again 3 days a week. I mean, I could just, it seems like I could say to Elizabeth, hey, I need a job for just about this much time, and she would be there. But they were, Bristols were just a wonderful, wonderful family overall.
What a great experience. I have to show this photograph of your wedding day.
Yes.
It's the old St. Anthony's.
Right, which isn't there anymore, unfortunately. This is probably extraneous, but when my husband, my mother was married in that, my mother and dad, and then I was, and then my sister and her husband were married there, but my husband was an usher, and when he went over there with my cousin, he looked in and he saw a couple sitting there. They were just making a visit to church there, and he said to my cousin Joe, "That's Jim Curley, the former mayor of Boston." And Joe said, "Oh, get out of here. How would you know that from the back?" He said, "My father always told me he had a thick head, a thick neck." and so the couple got up, and they were standing in the back there. Tom was ready to put out his hand and say, "My name's Tom ONeil." He couldn't get it out soon enough. Jim Curley says, "Jim Curley, what's your name?" I mean, that doesn't have much to do with Elizabeth's shop, but anyway.
But it's a
good
Cohasset,
story about
good
Cohasset.
Cohasset
It's a good
story.
Cohasset story, because, of course, Jim Curley had a big house with shamrock blinds over in North Situate.
So anyway, these photographs are wonderful to be able to share these photographs of the famous Elizabeth Bristol
Yeah,
that
the
we
famous
hear all the
Elizabeth
time
Bristol.
here in
Yes.
Cohasset with people who have had the opportunity to work there,
Yes.
as
You
you.
know, she was a graduate of Wheaton College, and then she went for training in merchandising and retailing with the W.T. Grant Company, and I bet she was the only woman, because the friend in Sherburne, the man who lived there, was one of those, and I knew another couple from New Hampshire where the man was the one that went on the W.T. Grant training program. And you still hear ads for the W.T. Grant Foundation, and I think of Elizabeth every time I hear them. Anyway.
And then here she is.
And here she is, yeah. Elizabeth Bristol's sportswear was a very big part of Cohasset.
And this is you,
Yes, yes.
right here.
Yeah, right, up there.
There you are. And all the famous Elizabeth Bristol employees.
And, who all paid on account on payday.
Oh. Wonderful. Well, Betty, this has been such a treat, and the photographs, and your singing is superb. I love your lyrics, they're great.
I'm not sure about that, but I love coming back to Cohasset, and
Oh.
I was just looking forward to this opportunity so much.
Well, thank you
I-
so very
thank
much
you.
of
And
making
thanks
this
to Ed
trip.
Mulvey for mentioning
Yes.
my name to you.
We're going to get Ed Mulvey here one day, too,
Good.
and you
Oh,
can come in.
Absolutely, I would love to. I'll be the audience then.
Before you go away, we go away, we want to show you a scarf from Elizabeth Bristol.
Yes.
Very fashionable today even to wear. However, it has 48 states, a map of the United States with 48 states. So
No
this is an
Alaska.
example of a Elizabeth Bristol
Right.
purchase.
It was Echo scarf, and I believe it was a gift of the salesman, the Echo scarf salesman at that time. And Echo scarves are still around, so.
They are. Thank you again.
You're
Thank you very
welcome.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for watching us on Living Histories. Goodbye.